All right, and we are live for the very first time on the Astral Atom Network. Thank you for anybody that shows up to this ragtag gathering of misfit individuals from the Obsidian Inner Order. I'm Mike. Maybe some of you know who I am, maybe you don't. I am one of the founders of the Astral Atom Network. And then we've got Ari on the call here, who is the other co-founder of the network, along with a few very interesting individuals that we met over the course of our journey at Astral Atom. So we've got Mr. Mentor of the Isitas project. We've got Mr. Kyle, who's a very prolific occultist and a learned scholar of the occult arts. And then we've got Mr. Scott, who is former military and has done some very interesting top secret things with the mind. And yeah, he's shared a lot of really cool stuff with us. So yeah, I wanted to actually start this discussion with a very simple question that has come up quite a bit recently, and I'll actually put Kyle on the spot because we did a tarot card reading maybe last week, and I asked you about the Obsidian Inner Order, and you really kicked me in the butt on this one and said, like, you've got to find some unifying direction for the Obsidian Inner Order and for the Astral Atom Network. And this question has just like haunted me night and day. And I think that speaks to, whatever it is that you're in touch with when you do these readings. But I was wondering, like, as somebody who considers themselves quote unquote chosen, what would you say first that your mission is? I want to speak to your mission and then sort of see if we can tie it all back to what do we do in general, now that we're all starting to switch on.
I got an email from one of my tarot clients that asked, what does it mean to be chosen? So what the heck does that mean? How do you define it? I just try to do no harm. It's a really difficult thing to do no harm in your life because there's things that we do that we don't think are harmful, but it's objectively harmful. So I think the really important thing is to objectify and define right from wrong and good from bad. And then the first step is to identify it. The second step is to do no harm, which many people struggle on. Most people don't know the difference between right and wrong or good and evil. And there is an objective difference that exists whether human beings perceive it or not, whether human beings exist or not. Right and wrong exists in nature as like sort of operating conditions or boundaries, because reality that we live in has boundaries, and they exist like gravity. They exist whether human beings do or not. So you got to do no wrong. And then the next step, which is everybody shits their pants and runs in the other direction, is that, okay, now we have to stop other people from doing wrong. And we have to take a stand against wrongdoing and evil in the external world, and to call it for what it is. Say, hey, that's evil. Here's why. We have to say, here's why it's evil. Call it that it's evil, and then we got to stop it. If nobody did any harm, 99.9% of the disaster and death and suffering and disease and illness and famine and pestilence in the world is self-inflicted. Humans, to say that humans do it to humans. If we could eliminate that harm and self-destructive and self-exploitative, what would you call it? I hesitate to say traits because I think it's like a virus of consciousness, where the human being is like traumatized and in like a fractured state. And so if we could heal, if we could heal the collective consciousness by healing the individuals, but we got to know how to heal people, and what does it mean to be healed? What's the difference between a sick person and a healed person? What is a healthy human consciousness supposed to look like? You know, what is a developed conscience supposed to look like? Um, so I'm leaning more towards. I find that everything is tied uh, into a more moral and ethical argument.
I would agree with that. With you talked about, this is Scott, um, talking about like the harm that they've undergone in the past, and I see that fractal as like a mental block, um, and that harm is not necessarily from this life, right? It's something that transcends this individual lifetime. And so that mental block is almost like someone that may have experienced trauma as a child and then blocked it out, and not remember it until they're 25 or something like that. And I agree that I think that part of the mission is to take people who are already naturally inclined toward being awakened ones, um, to heal that and merge that part of their mind and remove that mental block. Would you agree, Kyle?
Yeah, I would say that people just got to stop doing bad stuff. People got to, you know, there's nobody that likes to admit that they're wrong. It's very difficult for people to look in the mirror and say I'm wrong. It's easier for people to play mind games and be petty and divisive. I think the big step is defining it, recognizing it, seeing it. You can't fight an enemy that you can't see. You can't protect your rights if you can't define what your rights are. So I think that if if more people could see it and define it, and it was more objective in a way where like you could identify it easier, then I think the what would you call it? The illness would appear, like it would be self-evident. I think that we have a society where illness is promoted and manufactured and also socially endorsed. So you're getting illness promoted to you from corporations and big money and big power interests, but then you're also getting illness pushed onto you from like your family and your neighbors, and that's the most insidious form of it, because we as humans we're social. We want to be accepted by the people that we love and that should love us. Your mother and father make you. They should love you. They should teach you right. They shouldn't be harming you. But because we can't identify good from bad and right from wrong, and because our values are so skewed and completely intentionally skewed and manufactured, our likes and tastes and preferences and are largely manufactured by conscious malevolent interests. So what was the question?
Kyle, I took down some notes about what you said because there were some really interesting connections that you and me are on a very similar wavelength for this, and Kyle and I have had a lot of sort of one-off conversations about this just for hours and hours and hours. And Kyle's an extremely inspiring individual, and I don't know how much you're comfortable going into about your past in this public forum, but what I wanted to reopen was this phrase you used of "do no harm," and then you came back full circle to healing and to illness as a manufactured paradigm in society. And I think this connection to what it means to be a chosen one is really understanding all the ins and outs of science, of philosophy, of spirituality, of medicine. And these days, medicine is sort of reserved for people who wear a sort of, what do you call it, like uh, who wear the uniform of a doctor and who went to medical school and who have a certain credential on the wall. But this is maybe only in the last couple hundred years that this has been a walled off profession where the Hippocratic Oath actually comes into play if you are spiritually minded, that do no harm implies also that you should do good. Because if you're capable of doing good and you don't, then you're actually doing harm. So in some sense, like you've taken for your personal oath, the oath of a doctor. And this is part of my feeling as to what a chosen one is and what they ought to do. So what a chosen one is, in my mind, is a healer. And what they do is really more of a function of what they are. That if you have this presence about you, if you cultivate health, if you cultivate wealth, then the people around you are going to be elevated by your vibe, that you're going to bring this frequency of well-being. And I thought it was pretty interesting that you're suggesting that family, friends, neighbors would promote the frequency of illness as some sort of virtue. So can you give a couple examples of that?
Well, we're sold. I think it's a nature versus artifice battle where we're fight, and it's God versus Satan. Really, it's the mind of nature and creation versus the ego of man is what God versus Satan is. And so a lot of these artifices, they have the hip is it Hippocratic?
Mhm.
They have a Hippocratic oath in an institution that is inherently harmful and against nature, I think, in a lot of ways. So I think people need to return to natural things. We have natural design, we have a natural function, and it's when we go against our natural function, our natural design, that we get friction.
Yeah, exactly so. Yeah. By the way,
There
so
we
can I chime in
go
now at
on.
that point? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, because that what you just described there, that's isism, right? Which is the esoteric aspect of the isitos, right? It's saying, look, you got it, which is you guys are talking about it, blockages, getting stuck, the artifice as opposed to the reality. That's it, the manufactured thing. And is, which is life, real, purpose, meaning, right? That's the is-ish essence of it. And we're all trying to get along. I mean, everything in reality is a mix of those. It's all mixed up together. And we're moving through reality trying to get this etistic aspect of life to line up, to line up and be coherent and and work nicely. So there's a little friction, right? We're trying to minimize the friction. And when there's confusion and um, you know, um, yeah, things aren't lining up, that's where the friction comes in, and things are like chaotic and banging against each other. And it's like, yeah, nothing makes sense. And that's pain, right? That's what we basically end up, calling rolling up to evil, right? It's just bad stuff happening all over the place, but it's always that etistic opposition and control, right? Because chaos begets control, right? Can't have this chaos. We gotta get it, under control. And on the etistic side, it waxes and wanes from, lockdown control to chaos, right? And on the is-ish side, it's just serene, everything is gliding along, and that's how it should be. But then, because we're objects in this environment, um, we're these little balls of physics essence trying to make our way through it and keep banging into stuff, right? And hitting obstacles and challenges. And so the big thing with isidism is, it's all about abstraction. It's being able to zoom out and see those patterns, which are artistic concepts, patterns, and yeah, and then be able to navigate it, right? Because it's like you said. Well, I wanted to comment too on what you said, Kyle, about do no evil. But as the saying goes, you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. So the point being, yeah, do as little evil as you can, right? Evil. Um, I'm saying it in a non-judgmental way, whatever. Do as little evil as you can, but we're also trying to do good, right? We're also trying to improve things, right? And so if we're saying, look, just do no evil, you can hardly move around in this world without knocking something, and doing something. So that sort of begets not doing anything, right? I don't want to do anything for fear of doing something evil. We need to be out there doing things, but we need to be clear about what we're doing, right? That's the whole idea, is do something, try to do good, try to do as little evil as possible. And to the extent that you can do that, is how clear you are on, wisdom and being able to navigate
This is
wisely through
a
the
very Silicon Valley kind of, like, I could sense the Silicon.
Interesting.
I love it. This move fast and break things sort of mentality. And we try to.
Yeah, no, I get that parallel, but I honestly, I don't think, I just think yeah, I'm saying we're agents. We are agents in the world. We are here to do things and make things happen. But well, no, not necessarily. Some people are here. I shouldn't say that. You know what? I take that completely back. Some people are here to do more, make stuff happen and move things forward, and some people are here to keep the peace and be at peace, and it's all good. Yeah.
I prefer the term servants rather than agents.
There's people who ask really great questions, and they ask questions that I think a lot of officials in our society aren't equipped to answer. Like the clergy people are not equipped to answer these questions. The doctors are not equipped to answer these questions, and you have to get a very deep understanding of so many different fields in order to really figure out what's what in this world. And I want to address a gentleman on the live chat here, who's bringing some very interesting objectives. That this idea that there's a new age and there's like real Christianity, and I know I can't speak for everyone here. I will say the majority of people on this call right now would identify in some level as a Christian. I myself would call myself a Gnostic Christian, which yes, Scott, Christian. I know Kyle would call himself
Christ is king.
yeah, totally. Mr. Mentor, yeah, I see. Do I get an I? Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. But what we have learned in the court, a lot of our friends and family are gonna ostracize us for the sort of views that we take on that subject. Being Gnostic Christian means being somebody who's looking for gnosis, who's looking for a deep understanding, who's looking for the actual spiritual communion, who's looking for the real baptism of spirit, that doesn't want an intermediary, that doesn't want a priest, that doesn't want a pope, that believes that this is the Anton Wilson perspective, that in Discordianism, everyone is an equally infallible pope. And I love that everyone is equally infallible, that popes are known to be infallible. And so he nominated himself an infallible Discordian pope. And it sort of ties in with the Crowleyism, every man and every woman is a star. And there's room for everyone's destiny. But when you get into the text and you really try to read it for yourself and you really try to understand what it means to your life, you have to grasp that it's not just about the text anymore. That if you read even the first few lines of Genesis, where it says God said, "Let there be light," and there was, the original text is very beautiful. I can't read Hebrew, but what it is saying is that the word of God is none other than the creation itself. That the text that says the Lord said this, and then there was, like every one of those lines about day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, every one of those lines is basically equating the word of God with his creation, that we are none other than the mind of creation. And once you grasp that, you realize that the creator would not be so cruel to us as to give us an infallible text that's thousands of years old that tells us exactly how we must live, and that he would lay out every single rule, boom, 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 like this is what you should do, this is what you should not do. You can't live like that. And that word of God, indeed, it is the word of God because it's part of creation. Indeed, it's divinely inspired. But you know what else that text tells us is divinely inspired is ourselves. We are divinely inspired. And so you can look into the creation itself, and you must use the intelligence given to you by God in order to know what you have to do. And so morality is not a very simple issue. It's not cut and dried. It's a living experience.
I believe
Absolutely.
that I believe that morality is definable and objective.
Of course.
Morality.
Culturally.
I believe that a man that can act in right action 100% of the time and do no wrong, do no evil, commit no evil deed.
It did tell us to follow him, but maybe not in a religious sense, but in the sense that Jesus lives a perfect life. And if he says follow him, and greater things than I do shall you do, he's basically saying that yes, you can live an infallible life, you can live a perfect life. I'm just setting an example for you.
Right.
And
He's showing us the way.
But what makes it perfect?
Well,
what makes it perfect is that I am an infallible Discordian Pope. For a while, Anton Wilson was giving out these cards that gave the papal authority to the holder. This card entitles the beholder to papal authority of being an infallible Discordian Pope, and also confers upon you the ability to create more Discordian popes who are equally infallible.
I think anybody that tells you that you need an intermediary between you and God needs to go jump in the lake. I think that people see God as a separate thing. We are a part of God, and God is within us. We are made of God, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Part of
Not
God.
even so to speak. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. You know, Kyle, I'm oh, sorry, Scott. You were
No, I was going to say, I totally agree that we are a fractal of God.
Yeah. Just like every gene has our genetic code inside of it, right? That's an analogy. But look, hey, Kyle, I wanted to go back to what you said, because I find this interesting. I'm not sure I agree. And so, but I think we're on the same wavelength. So I'd like to explore it a little bit further. But the notion that morality can be, clearly known, strictly understood,
Objective
good,
or
bad, and
subjective?
that. What does that look like? I mean, can you expand on that? Because I'm not sure I would agree.
So if something is subjective, it is made up. It's defined by the mind of man. Oh, it is whatever we say it is. Like a fork is a fork because I made it and called it a fork. Whereas if something is objective, it is intrinsic. It is inherent. It is it exists. It is, whether or not it is perceived or believed.
Right. In and of itself, like the concept of a circle or a triangle. That doesn't need us to invent it. It exists.
Well,
Right?
it is the concept or idea of a circle is a human invention, but a circle is it's a circle.
Oh, that's interesting because I would
And
say the
so,
concept of a circle is the very thing that we didn't invent. We discovered. We looked up at the sun and said, "Wow, that's an interesting shape there. What is the deal with that?" And we looked into it and discovered pi. And it's like, "Holy shit, that's intense."
well,
So
math and geometry,
pi,
yeah, we didn't invent it, we discovered it, but we labeled it, we made names for it, right?
yeah, exactly right. We labeled these things. And which is what we do, right? And so we're categorizing as, that's what we're making sense of things. I mean, that's right out of Genesis as well. I mean, we not only did we go through God went through that, but then he said to us, all right, go start naming things. Name this, name that. And that's been our job ever since, is just classifying and making sense of this world that we're in. And it seems to me it's a never-ending job because just the amount of discoveries fractals out, right? And infinitely, so that we're never going to be done with that job of like making sense of this world. And the most bottom line fundamental part of that is trying to figure out what is good and what is evil, right? So I want to know. Everyone wants to know in each moment, what should I be doing right now? What is good right now and what is evil? Sometimes it's clear, right? And it's not so stark. Sometimes it's a little bit meh, and a little bit and we're trying to navigate and decide.
Your is
I,
your is it project, which Ari, let's drop a link to the Isitas project so anybody watching can check it out. You can put that in our chat. I'll make sure it gets out. But I still keep going back to the idea that it's right brain, left brain. I don't know if you wrote that somewhere, but that the right brain is the creative, expansive, spiritual part that doesn't like boundaries, that pushes past any kind of limitation, that binary can exist but doesn't necessarily have to exist. That's the right brain. The left brain is the logical part. But it's the logical part of our brain that seeks a chess-like understanding of morality. That in chess, it's a very interesting game because the set of possible moves is constrained to a finite number. You can do a finite number of things. Your opponent can do a finite number of things in response, and so on until you get to the game tree of all possible game trees and you get to the end game, and you can sort of calculate what's the optimal move. And so the more sophisticated opponent is the one who can game it out further in advance. But when it comes to morality in the real world, that's part of it. The choices you make, you can certainly game out chess-like choices. Those exist in this world. This is not to discredit the idea of a left brain based morality, but there is also a right brain based morality. And I contend that the right brain based morality is not a mode of thinking. It is not a set of prescriptive beliefs. It is not a set of do's and don'ts. It is simply a mode of being that that you can choose in any given moment to raise your frequency, or you can choose in that same moment to drop your frequency. And there's probably different constructs of positive vibration that you can crystallize to. You can go to different kinds of higher level emotions. You can experience joy, happiness, contentment, gratitude, or you can go to rage, sadness, fear, anxiety. But any one of these things, you have a choice in any given moment whether to expand your awareness into higher possibility. And not by virtue of some choice, but by virtue of like what you are in that moment. Like that is an absolute aspect of morality, because you affect the entire universe by the frequency that you carry. And certainly everything in your immediate vicinity. your pets, your loved ones, the beings around you, the trees, the land, even your house has a consciousness, and you can speak to your house. Your house can feel you. There's a relationship between you and the universe. The universe is in you, and you are in the universe. It's just as Jesus said, I and the Father are one. He who has seen me has seen the Father. I am the way, the truth, and the light. I am the resurrection and the life. So he's saying that he is in the universe. The Father is the universe. That's the Gnostic understanding.
Right. I believe that it would limit us to look at it just as the brain, because it is the universe that we're tapping into. I think it's important to view the brain as an instrument or a tool, a transducer, right? Which means that it takes in something and it can transfer it into something different. Alchemy, really. And it's an instrument that is utilized to tap into that. So there are different sections, like in a computer, you have the hard drive and the random access memory and things like that, that are located to specialize in certain areas. But I think also, as far as what the truth is and it being subjective, I believe that is subjective from someone's individual personal viewpoint. However, I believe that underlying that is a capital T truth that goes beyond even quantum physics, and it comes back to his will. And I think that we are vessels of his presence and not rooted in the fleeting strength of flesh, right? But in the unshakable trust of his will, and to carry that out. And divergence from that is what creates the duality.
How do you find that? What would you describe as your connection to his will, and how did that come to you?
Well, so we receive it through our brains, right? Which they've recently discovered the heart is actually also a brain. It's one muscle that's long, like a long cow tongue, and wrapped into itself into a chestahedron, a seven-sided object. And this has been proven by science. And it creates a vortex, not a pump. So just like in nature, when water goes through a vortex, it becomes living water, they call it, or structured water, which can have memory. The water actually retains memory from the last objects that it's been around or seen, you could call it, and it will crystallize in different formations based on that, to where you can even see pictures through the ice. And so our brains operate in a similar way. And it's powered by the vortex through the heart, which takes part of our water and it turns it into a fourth state of matter, a plasma, which carries life. And it actually flows through our veins using electromagnetic frequency, basically, where the structured water lines the inside of all of our veins and blood vessels. And then the regular blood has an opposite charge. And so it flows through our blood like a maglev train. And my personal experience was I've always intuitively known that I've had this calling, you might call it, but I had a very sharp awakening, specifically on the night of August 15th, 2022, while I was out in the wilds of Montana. And at 3:33 in the morning, I woke up and had a very spiritual experience that it was an immediate shift. And that since then, it has changed my perspective on life. And I've been seeking this divine intuition, you might call it, trusting not in the body, but knowing that our strength comes from without, from the universe, from whatever name you want to give to it. And then seeking that eternal capital T truth basically through celestial clarity, or the sovereign spirits that are in harmony with that truth rather than the negative ones.
Scott, I keep meaning to ask you about your experience in Montana, because you mentioned that for the very first time that we on a group call, and I forgot the context around the story because there was so much going on that day. But was that part of the training? Like they stole some aspect of shamanism, loaded you up with some psychedelic, and threw you out in the wilderness, or like how did you wind up having this experience?
This experience came while I was actually just doing it from the northern border with Canada in Montana on a 5-day camping and fishing trip with my friend who was a former pastor. And it happened spontaneously, personally. There is training that is exactly like you spoke of. And so we would call that that would be an induced spiritual awakening or spiritual experience. That would be similar to what people might experience using psychedelics or DMT to broaden the mind. And really, the purpose of it is it comes down to neuroplasticity and the ability to broaden our mind and open that third eye or those horizons within our mind. And because our brains are capable of this. And at the time of birth, when you're born, the umbilical cord is cut, our brains, and this is scientifically proven, our brains release hormones that hardwire about 25% of our neurons. And then as we continue through experience, by about age 25, about 75% of our neurons have been hardwired. However, this through training and practice can be changed. So I'm actually around 33% hardwired. So you can induce or naturally go through experiences like this that I think on the physical side reset your ability to be able to adapt and your ability to, through intent and meditation, actually focus that neuroplasticity to rewire the transducer of our mind.
Psilocybin, man, works wonders for that.
It absolutely does. And they do use that, and also DMT and LSD. That was not part of my personal experience on that trip, though. That was not induced.
That's why that stuff's all on like strict schedules, and they know that people can it's physiological. People have physiological brain activity imbalance and brain damage, and they know that these substances heal that, and that they can work people and heal.
That restriction came about in the early 70s due to the movement in the United States, right? And they saw all these people that you might call hippies, that were focused on love, and they were using these substances, and it was a mass awakening movement. And the government realized the truth in it, behind it, and that's when they began programs like Stargate, right? But it was all in their viewpoint of what their mission is, right? So it's weaponized. So that was used primarily for spying and for finding Russian submarines that were in the ocean. And so they recognized that they were doing all their own experiments and MK Ultra and other things to try to induce this artificially. And the human movement was doing it naturally with the aid of these tools. And so they know that knowledge is power. And this was a group of humans that wanted love and peace, not the wars that they wanted to push for control. And so they monopolized that. Just like with apocryphal writings in the Bible, the ones that are taken out are the ones that teach methodology and tactics and strategy for activating this knowledge, some of which was ultimately provided to us by Christ, who called his teachings and his church the way. And they know that knowledge is power. So they clamped down on those substances, I believe it was like 1973, specifically for that reason, because they do work.
Yeah, I imagine that how disruptive free love actually is seen to be by the forces that be. That you get people who
It's the duality.
60s and 70s and turn to what is it? Timothy Leary, turn on, tune in, and drop out, and they go, wow, we can't have any of this. There's too many people dropping out and not playing the that we're all supposed to play, the capitalist.
You can't have a fiefdom if you don't have serfs.
Exactly. So I have had a number of experiences on these things, and I know the algorithm may not like us if we go too far into this territory. So I'm going to try to word what I say very carefully, because of course the archons made their way into the Google algorithms too. So I
Created it.
I said, how do I put this? So before I left day job about 2 weeks ago, there was a type of account that it's just a total scam that you can load your money into this flexible spending account for healthcare, and an oxymoron for healthcare because it's really meant to destroy your health. But I felt that the tax shelteredness of this could be good in case I needed some help for a broken bone or for a dental procedure. I just take a couple $1,000s and set it aside. And what I knew about HSAs was you get this debit card and you load up your debit card with tax-free money, but it just comes straight out of your paycheck. And I thought it was that, but the problem with this one is that you put this money aside, and if you didn't use it within a year, this is a huge scam. If you don't use the money that you take out of your paycheck and load it into an FSA, you look this up, FSA, if you don't use that money within a year, it just disappears.
Wow.
You don't even get it. It's gone. It's gone. And I couldn't believe this. I thought it was my money. I don't like going to doctors. I don't even like talking to doctors. I feel like a lot of them are pretty closed-minded. But if I need a bone set, I'll go to a doctor. If I need a cavity filled, I'll go to a dentist. But that's as far as it goes for me. Otherwise, I'm going to figure out what green vegetables I'm going to eat.
It's interesting, actually. Ben Carson.
This FSA, I'll just finish this point. The FSA, that year was coming up, and I had about a month left. And I'm like, what am I going to use this for? And there's actual online clinics now. They're starting to get legalized for certain psychedelic dissociative treatments. This one's called New Life. I'm not an affiliate for them or anything. Okay, if you're interested in psychedelic therapy, you can legally do this in a number of states, and I don't know about countries outside the US. This one's called New Life. Ari, if you could drop that in the chat if people are interested. It's a little pricey, but basically you get on the phone with a telehealth professional, and this is as close as it got to real medicine through the telephone that I've ever experienced. Is that these doctors would prescribe psychedelic treatment for you to work through your trauma. And this particular psychedelic that starts with a K and rhymes with etamine was it was actually given to people who were unaliving themselves off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. So they would go to jump off the bridge, and they'd get talked down by somebody, and then they'd spend the night in an ambulance and the next couple of days in a hospital because they're on unalive watch. But on the ride back to the hospital, they'd be given this thing that starts with a K and rhymes with etamine, and they would just go into the K-hole. And in the midst of the K-hole, they would find themselves and find a whole new lease on life. And there's actual scientific studies on this, that 18 months later, they just came out of their depression, and it's a sort of reset for your entire nervous system. That's the best that science can figure out how it works, other than it starts to help you grow new dendrites, new neurons. And anyway, they supervise it so good. Like you can do it in the comfort of your home. They send you lozenges. Ari actually came and trip sat me while I did this. She was such a good sport about this because I was just, you know, in the K-hole in bed for 3 hours and couldn't speak or move. But you see things, you talk to spirits, you see demons, you see your own mortality. I saw the Garden of Eden. I saw my purpose for being here. I saw all of that, and it was this is like legal. It's just a prescription you get, like for anything. But they like the telehealth sessions. Like they were so supportive. They were so. I think that's moving in the right direction for these sort of things. But it's not one. It's not an actual medication I would recommend for people to just try because it's really hard on your body. I wish they'd make other ones legal. But yeah, Kyle, go ahead. Sorry.
Anybody that wants to do some really good self-help and self-therapy, you should take 5 grams of dried psilocybin mushroom in the graveyard at midnight. It's very therapeutic.
I know that ketamine, that other thing that we talked about has been very successfully used with people that had PTSD from war, including several people I know. And it's been talked about broadly, widely on the Sean Ryan show, and also for substance abuse, often that's associated with PTSD, with like a 92% success rate, which is incredible. And I also know that Elon Musk is a proponent of it and has publicly said that he does that.
So do you have to have a diagnosis, with these folks, like depression or something, or I mean, you can't just come walking off the street.
Well, you can get it online. You do a telehealth.
Yeah, you talk to an actual doctor, and I don't know, what did your parents say something nasty to you way back when? Do you have bad dreams? Do you get anxious in public? Do you have trouble sleeping? You name it.
Okay, so this was like when I got my medical marijuana card. It's like, oh yeah, my back. I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. Okay, good enough. Check, right? That kind of thing.
This is a great example of the kind of like I don't mean to pick on you, but I see this in everyone. Okay, I felt the same way about getting my medical card. Is this like self-loathing that they like train into you that like, oh, you don't deserve it, so you gotta sort of like finesse this condition that oh, my back hurt, oh yeah, I need to smoke the reefer, my back is good. No, you have pain, like you have an absolute right to use whatever herbs and spices from God's spice rack that you want, and you don't steal it. But like the government has no business telling you what you can and can't put in your body. If you believe it's helpful, then by God, go for it. Yeah, you're not lying, you're not deceiving. At the end of the day, even the doctors are not responsible for your health. You are. So if you think that's going to help you, like no matter whether somebody else thinks that your condition is severe or not, whether somebody else thinks you have wasting, whether you need to be literally wasting away, whether you need to have literal gangrene in order to qualify for a medical card, is preposterous.
If I wanted to go and drink all the bleach under my sink,
no, I totally agree. Now you're wire.
Just a quick comment. If I wanted to drink all the bleach under my sink, I would be right to do that. Do you know why?
Because
why?
Free country.
Because I own my body.
No.
If I want to kill myself, I'm not harming anybody else. I get the right to do that. Is it in my best interest? Probably not. Is it conducive to my health? Probably not. But I got the right to do it. Why?
Yeah.
Because I own my body. I'm not harming anybody.
Yeah,
it's important to look through the lens where you understand that the government and these industries they crave power and control through money, right? And that gives them their influence, so they control these substances tightly, even when there is no harm that could come from them. They might need to use them as the directions say. However, they still tightly control it Yet you look behind the scenes, what they're doing with their own people, and they're hardcore pushing it. So it's not on accident. I think, like, I know Colorado also allows medical psilocybin, which I am a huge proponent for, and especially for people suffering from depression or PTSD or substance abuse and things like that. They utilize it for that. And compared to the other things I've seen for like combat PTSD, going through simulated stuff to try to numb yourself to it doesn't fix it. It just maybe numb you. Where this is an actual cure, and it's through your mind, through your brain chemistry, which people get afraid of that, right? Oh, it's going to change your brain chemistry. No, it's going to induce the natural chemicals that are already present that allow during REM sleep only for neuroplasticity. It occurs naturally during REM. That's why you have all the hallucinations that are associated with it. It must be. So it's inducing hyper neuroplasticity. This is proven.
Eating a cheeseburger changes your brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not substances. The psilocybin itself is a trigger for substances that are natural in our body. They're catalysts.
Right.
So it's not like it's doing it. It is a catalyst to induce, like you might, get higher testosterone levels from eating red meat. It's the red meat's not doing it. It's a catalyst.
Yeah. Once you get sensitive enough, once you purify your body through fasting, through cleansing, through yoga, through qigong, you do any of these things, you start to sensitize yourself. You're going to feel the differences more and more. That even if you eat a cheeseburger, whereas your previous self, if you were diabetic and you were obese and all this shit, and then you eat a cheeseburger, you're going to feel the same sort of blob that you've always felt. But
Right.
if you exercise yourself and you eat that cheeseburger, you're going to feel it. And I'm not saying you're going to feel good, you're going to feel bad. I don't know about diet anymore. I used to be vegan, I used to be carnivore, I used to be vegetarian, and then I went back to vegan. I don't even know like what I would tell people to do anymore. But the point is, you got to do what's best for you. And you're going to feel a certain way when you put different things in your body. You're going to feel a certain way when you take nicotine. You're going to feel a certain way when you jalapeno pepper. I've had spiritual experiences that were clean and profound and totally unexplainable in terms of the mundane, from things that you can get at the supermarket that I wasn't even trying to get loaded, that I made some particularly potent salsa one evening after a trip to the Whole Foods that I didn't realize was going to change my life. I wound up talking to the archangels after, because I was on this yogic kick, right? Like they tell you, no meat, no garlic, no onions, but I still wanted my bachelor nachos. So I would get the nacho chips, and I'd get some of that crappy vegan cheese that probably it's better to just eat the regular cheese. But I got the vegan cheese, and I'd throw it in the microwave or the oven, melt the cheese. And I didn't want to do the garlic or onion, so I put all this shit in the blender, like tomatoes, jalapenos, habaneros, and there was some peppers at Whole Foods or Trader, I don't remember, it's probably Trader Joe's. I asked the guy, "What's the spiciest pepper you got?" And he points to some kind of ghost pepper that I never saw him before or since, and they were tiny. And he said, "Only use one." And I'm like, okay, yeah, you can tell an average person that, but I'm a chosen. I'm gonna use 7. And besides, it's a whole blender full of salsa. He's probably just saying if you're gonna eat one, just eat one, don't eat 7. But I put like 7 or 8 in my blender of salsa, and it was so spicy. It was the spiciest thing I ever had. And I polished off a whole blender of salsa with my bachelor nachos. And that night I met the archangels in my dreams, and it was more real than a dream. You guys have all experienced that, where you have a dream that isn't really a dream, or something about it is more real than waking life. And this being, yeah, it was crazy. Like they just came out of nowhere. He was like neon green. It actually kind of like these guys in my background almost look like them, but green and winged. And he comes to me and he says nothing. Okay, this is the most beautiful, like angelic being like you can imagine. And like gender isn't really a thing for these beings. Like there's sort of nothing between the legs, and you can sort of tell the presence is, you know, still some like very strong, very sublimated sexual energy to a very like high level of love, of consciousness, love light. And I just see like out of his heart center just come these like rings of power, just like be like a sonar. Like he's beaming this to me. He's like sending me this energy. And that's all I say. And the psychic message I got was you can come join our ranks anytime you want. We're open for you. And then he after that transmission he just left.
Wow.
Shit, you can get it from the supermarket. Stuff change your consciousness. It doesn't have to be something on the naughty list if you're sensitive to it. Really, there's no such thing as effects and side effects when it comes to medications. There's just the effects. And then they put a label on the thing and say these are the effects and these are the side effects. For example, if you go and you get a antihistamine over the counter, that antihistamine will list as a side effect that it's diphenhydramine HCl. The side effect will be drowsiness. And then for a buck more or a buck less in a different aisle, you'll see the sleep medication, the sleep aid, is diphenhydramine HCl in the same dosage, except they slap a different label on it and they charge a different price for it, and it's a sleep aid.
It's important to remember that it's because it's not that compound that you're putting in your body that is doing it. It is the chemical catalyst for it. So maybe some of them just, and depending on your own anatomy and physiology, have more of an effect on you, depending on what you ate even, or any number of things, or your thought process. But I'd like to use an analogy for this. It's like, imagine North America is your brain, and it is covered with all the railroad tracks and road lines. And what you currently have, it's set in place. And so some of those railroads now, they go to a dead end, or they go off a bridge into a canyon, or it's ridden with crime, and you don't even want to get on that train because you've been assaulted on it before. And that these chemical catalysts come in like construction workers. And now you're able to reroute, and not just reroute, kind of like fix up. Instead of an old nasty subway station like in New York City, all of a sudden it's like the magwebs in Japan, and beautiful and pristine and faster and better. And they can reconstruct, and you are the foreman for these construction workers. So through your intent and will, and it's through motion, you can lead these construction workers to build these new maglev rails, and also where they go, which could be to a transmission station that communicates with the Starlink satellites. And so it's like the Starlink satellites and the internet and everything, it was already there, but now you can reach the transmission station and you can access this knowledge that already exists. And so analogy.
Cultivated that kind of really clean laser. You described it as a laser in your third eye.
Yeah.
And I know you can't really talk about like what exactly was in the secret training, but you have this laser light in your third eye, and you did some crazy stuff with Hemisync and with Project Stargate. But talk a little bit about like, how did you cultivate this? How did you go from the gross base metal to the laser light?
So There is a program, a process that you follow, and it's while it's a single process, it's individualized within. And so Hemisync, or you could use binaural beats to accomplish this effect, is what you would do, was created by one of the founders of the Stargate program. And what it does is it takes a specific frequency range, so you know your brain going from alpha, beta, delta, all the way to gamma. So it usually goes up to about 40 hertz. That's gamma. But it can reach up to 100 hertz. And this high gamma is characterized as being something that like high level monks could do. And it allows them to do mind over matter, but it's not just their own matter, right? Because we're all connected. So you can get up to 100. So the Hemisync, you use 2 headphones and it will go toward one of those specific frequencies. Say you were trying to reach 80 hertz, and it will slightly offset it above and below. And what it does, by both ears hearing it, you'll first hear it go wah, 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 like it's a helicopter. And then you can focus in to your mind, in the middle of your mind, and you start to just hear one solid tone. And what's happening is it's linking your 2 hemispheres of your brain, and they operate independently. They operate as independently as our subconscious does from our consciousness, which subconscious makes up about 90% of your mind. So it allows you to sync those 2 hemispheres. Now, the third part of the process is syncing your third brain, which is, as I said, the heart. They have discovered that the heart muscle, the reason that it doesn't repair over time is because, just like the brain, it has neurons in it. So it's literally a brain that operates independently of these other 2 hemispheres as well, like another subconscious. So the third part of the training is to actually connect the heart with the 2 spheres of your brain. That trifecta then, or people might use, like they call it maybe the Kundalini process, they can use breath work to, but there's all types of methods. And so it produces new types of chemicals that go through your spine and connect your heart to, but the heart also is our electromagnetic center of our body. It's what mainly puts out our own electromagnetic field. And they've scientifically proven that it communicates information through this electromagnetic field that the heart produces. And so it's proven. It's just like how we can turn sound into information. This provides information. And so the heart is basically communicating with the 2 spheres all the time through this like inner telekinesis. But depending on your wavelength that you're at, it does correspond to chakras and natural points in your body where the nerve clusters are. And to use the gamma waves, which are those highest hertz, they're the most powerful. So, it's just the frequency. When you get down to the very close frequency, it's the most powerful. When a nuclear bomb goes off and they're worried about the radiation, that's just from gamma waves attaching to tiny, tiny invisible dust particles. And if they just land on your roof, it will kill you. So this high energy level can be focused through the trifecta, focused into a pinpoint. And so everyone is kind of always putting out this electromagnetic information, like a lamp. You can focus it like a laser beam. And it literally sends gamma waves out through your mind, through your forehead, literally. So it just takes that big ball of electromagnetic energy and it can focus it in, and you can focus that through intent, through motion, through will. You can focus it. And it, just like using one of the military's pain beams, pain rays, they call them, that are on top of an armored truck, and it can shoot out microwaves that burn the 1/64th top layer of your skin, and it makes people feel like they're standing in front of like a 500-degree oven they just opened. Or they can use acoustic waves and disperse the crowds. That was just shown recently, I believe, in Greece. And they have the nodule ones that they used on our people in Cuba. They'll make people feel sick. So it's all just different wavelengths of energy. So gamma, being the most physically powerful, can be utilized to actually do telekinetic work. Whether it's moving something or heating something up, it's important to remember that it's like oscillating current, like an exchange of energy. It's like things heat up only because those molecules start moving faster, right? You can cool down and attract heat. You can push out heat. And so it's all really kind of working like that. And it operates in for lack of a better term, through quantum entanglement. It does not operate like the speed of light. It is those waves. However, like that's why it can be done, and then someone immediately could feel that connection on the other side of the planet. There's not a speed of light delay for people that are communicating telepathically, because it induces it on the near, and then that other side receives it immediately, you know? So
That's a fascinating take. When
not a take. It's proven science, baby, and we use it.
but
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of videos on all that stuff. I'm not nearly as steeped in it as you are, Scott. I've heard about all that, but the the gamma rays. I mean, they're saying. I mean, has that been like scientifically measured where they're like detecting gamma waves coming out of the
Yes,
the sky?
we are always capable of producing gamma waves. They can measure that with current equipment. That's standard up to 100 hertz. Our natural resonance matches that of the Earth's. So that can be it's measured. It's called the Schumann resonance, and it's actually measured by like the ionosphere and all the lightning and energy in it, and how it resonates around the Earth. And it's about, I think it's 7.86, I believe, hertz. And that's what the Earth typically puts out. And they measure it in Russia and multiple different areas that you can find online called the Schumann resonance. And they'll see when there's spikes, and it just recently has had some all the way up to like 36, which was the highest ever recorded. So it's getting up to gamma, and it bounces back down to the 7.86. We put out 7.86, human beings, from our heart. Scientifically proven. We match. As those spikes happen with the Earth, they happen in our heart. We match it. We resonate. And this is science.
Amazing. Yeah, I found a Schumann resonance on Wikipedia. I'm gonna dig into that some more.
We can go up to 100. Normal gamma is 40.
yeah,
That's how our brains work.
people were asking on a previous call, like, what frequency do you recommend, Scott? And Scott goes, yeah, just goes pedal to the metal straight up to 100. And
Well, I do. I've been doing this for 10
like,
years.
wait a minute, Scott, isn't it gonna fry my brain? And he's like, I don't know, like haven't like your chosen one, you voided the warranty already, like just go to 100. And I dropped a link to a
I did get a tumor on my forehead that I had to have removed. That's true. I went to a plastic surgeon in Newport Beach, California.
Oh, well, gee, buddy, how'd you manage that?
Yeah.
Did you tell him?
Did I tell him that? No. I bumped my head. I don't know what happened. I haven't told anybody.
Yeah. So when Ari and I were at the beach, we stopped at a number of head shops in this beach town that we went to. We were looking for the diviner's sage. So if you guys know what diviner's sage is, it's one of those smokables that it's legal in some places, and in this particular state, it was legal, and it is a very dark and very powerful hallucinogen. And for some reason, you can just buy it over the counter at certain head shops. And most of the head shops we walked, after a couple, I learned not to ask anymore because it's just so taboo. Even in this place where it was legal, they go, "Oh, you're gonna do that." But we got to talking to a couple of individuals at this head shop. They're very helpful. Younger individuals who they really resonated with what we were talking about. We connected on a deep level, and they are into this sort of stuff. And they mentioned some third eye awakening. The guy said that he had watched a 5-minute video from Aaron Doughty. He's a pretty prolific spirituality YouTuber on here. Ari, if you can find the link, drop the link to that for people. But he said, yeah, there's this 5-minute meditation. I did it one time, and it woke up my third eye. And I went and looked it up, since Scott and Pels have been having this discussion in our group, because he talks about how you don't just focus on the third eye, you link your heart awareness to your third eye. So you first cultivate an awareness of your heart energy, which is the most powerful frequency in your body, is that vortex. And that's what they describe. It's a vortex of energy, and you can learn to push with it, or you can learn to pull with it. And that vortex, once you become aware of it, it's way more powerful than anything that your mind will concoct. So if you're trying to do any kind of mentalism, any sort of paranormal work, or any kind of meditation, it really doesn't happen as much in your brain as if you can activate the heart center. So activating the heart center, you then connect it with the third eye. And I do lots of meditation, but when I went into this meditation, and I said, okay, connect my heart with my third eye. And as you inhale, you just imagine like the sensation of the prana, the universal energy, going into your heart, at the same time going into your third eye, and you just connect them. There's just this like channel that goes between them. And you exhale the same thing. You inhale, the energy comes in, you exhale, the energy goes out of both places, and you become aware of this heart third eye connection. And I felt that immediately. I didn't expect to have such a drastic connection. I thought there would be a lot more quote unquote imagination involved, but there's undoubtedly a channel there. And in the Qigong school that I trained with, Spring Force Qigong, Master Lin has taught us that there's 3 dantians, like 3 major energy centers in your body where you can store energy. One of them is a lower dantian. It's where your navel is. So that's where like you have the umbilical cord connected. And so that's the main storage center. But then the middle dantian is your heart. And that's just this powerhouse where you interact with the universe. It's this gateway. But then he describes the third dantian, the third eye, as not really a storage point at all. That the upper dantian, the third eye, actually consumes energy. That if you can't really store that much energy in your third eye, it's more of something that uses up energy. And I've heard this from other veterans of the Spring Forest Qigong school, namely Drew Hempel. He said that it even happened to him that when he had his third eye awakening, that he actually got really fat after he started overusing his third eye. Because what happens is people get access to this power and they start overusing their third eye, and then they use up all their energy, and they have to eat a whole food to make up for the loss of energy. So then what Master Lin says is you can do the same third eye training if you want to awaken your third eye, but you use your third eye to visualize light in the other dantians, so you can use your third eye to look inward instead of looking outward, that you get a third eye awakening, you can see this like light show out there, and you go, whoa, my God, there's a show out there. And that's true, but you'll like burn up the energy. But what you can do instead is like exercise the third eye by looking within, and you'll actually energize the other centers.
Right. I look at it like your pineal gland, which is right, so you have your two hemispheres right under your corpus callosum that connects the two hemispheres. Underneath it is the pineal gland. That's the physical part of where that's like your pupil of your third eye. And it's the size of a pea. And then you have your heart, which besides having neurons and being that third mind, it also is an energy generator by being a vortex. And so by connecting it, that energy, that power powers the pea-sized pineal gland. If it's only drawing upon itself, it's small. You will run out of the hormones that are produced in your body to bring about the effect. It takes a lot of energy to create those hormones. Just like how someone might have, a rush of hormones and see their child is stuck under a car, and all of a sudden you see a 120-pound woman lift up a car. Well, it's like that for our mind. And so but if it's powered by the heart, it is capable of sustaining that level of energy for long periods of time. It's the nuclear power station. And so that shows where the little pineal gland, and then you're connecting your heart, and then it's generating this electromagnetic field around you that changes from the 7.86 hertz that matches the earth. You're artificially changing it, just like how the earth can have spikes. We can have spikes, and we do. It's measured. This is science. Like I said, it goes up to 100. And so depending on what you're trying to do would be, and through emotion, would be what frequency you reach. And then it can be very much helped with using binaural beats in the Hemisync method to reach that specific chakra, you might call it. It might be, they're associated with different emotions. So to push out that emotion or pull that emotion, or to have that effect, you would go to different types of frequencies. And it's through motion. And so when you look within, it's like, and I do agree with that. It's like, try to imagine seeing like, that is how I do it. It would be like you're looking and you have your eyes closed, and all of a sudden you're starting to see like lightning-ish purple images that are forming and beginning to go from blurry to clear. And so you pull back in, and it's kind of like elongating your binoculars. And all of a sudden now you can see clearly, and the images start to become clear. And then so it's like I'm trying to focus on something on the distance through my eyelids. And then it feels like you're there looking at it, even though you're back within your own mind. That's how it feels for me.
Hey,
do you have any
Kyle,
experiences like that?
Yeah. Have you done any remote viewing?
Remote viewing, yeah.
Want to talk about it?
Talk about remote viewing.
Anything.
I do remote viewing. I go into trance. I do.
Stuff. When you told me what you were involved with, oh my God, like that's so like left-hand
Freaky.
path. It's so ooh, like I want to know more every time I talk to you.
It's unusual, but it's real, and people don't realize that it's real. And like it's hidden well because people don't like think about it. So there could be somebody that's versed in this stuff that's like in your town, where is like works in your fire hall or whatever, or your grocery store, and like you think they lead a normal life, but they're doing all this weirdo shit, and they've got like idols and like eldritch god altars and stuff. But yeah, I do a little bit of remote viewing. I like to do hypnotic regression, which is where you use a hypnotic trance. You help a client work themselves into a hypnotic trance, and then they can unlock memories. But they also have like visualization exercises that we do. So you'll get the person to visualize something, or like you'll make them like open a treasure chest in their mind's eye, for example, and then you let them tell you what's in the chest, and then you can extrapolate from there. So you can kind of guide other people, and they're remote viewing and they don't even know it. But I love astral travel. I love remote viewing. I love lucid dreaming. I do lots of ritual. I do lots of invocation.
So in the context of the inner order, you had set up some remote viewing, some tarot card reading sessions for the group, and when we started talking about launching your page, I was trying to box you in a little bit. I feel like you've got so many talents that I just want to figure out like what could we show people that they're gonna be able to grasp and understand very easily. And the thing that stuck out to me was tarot. But when you start mentioning all this other stuff, like you're gonna send them into a hypnotic regression, and they're gonna open a treasure chest, and then we're gonna figure out what's in the treasure chest. Like this starts to get super super out there. I mean, are you willing to offer people these services too if they're into it?
I love to do the regression in person. It's almost, I would say that it's of vital importance that it's done in person, because I like to play with energy, like you're saying, pushing and pulling energies, and physical. I like the physical presence of the person. I've never tried to do it over electronic medium, but I love to offer hypnotic regression. I just like to help people. I think it's very therapeutic. It's very helpful. This is stuff that the average person doesn't think about, and the average person has blocks because they don't think about this. So I love to help people unblock their pipes.
So man, I am gonna totally hit you up, Tyler, on that later, because I actually have got a session coming up with a woman to do exactly that, some hypnosis regression. Because see, I'm totally different from you guys. I am unlike you, all of you guys. I am not like tuned into this stuff. I'm operating at the mental level. Have been for a long time. Now I believe I understand all this, but I don't meditate. I don't lucid dream. I don't haven't done psychedelics. I haven't had a spiritual, you know, psychedelic experience or anything like that, right? But and I want to. I mean, I sort of, in a way, it's kind of like there's some trepidation there too. But anyway, so I've been
For
thinking,
good reason.
huh? What
For
was
good
that?
reason, there's trepidation.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
no,
anxiety every
yeah.
time.
I mean, I
I,
know, I
ex-
know. Go ahead. Sorry, I
It's
kept cutting you off.
it's Pandora's box. Once you open it, you can't close it, and so you have to be prepared for what comes out of it, whether it's positive or negative. If you
Yeah,
don't, that's when people will go into what is referred to as the dark night of the soul,
yeah.
where you are learning through you're in the fire, you're learning through experience on how to cope with and deal with the negative side of the duality that comes out of that Pandora's box once you open it. And how to open it is different for everyone. Even they say for Kundalini process, there's like 212 methods. There are many, many methods. It can be through that, like through breath work and meditation. It can also be induced to help speed it up, because that it is your neural network that then can begin to be rewired to open yourself. And you get back to like being like children who, because of like lack of experience, when they're figuring out what to do and problem solving, they don't focus on one thing that they're going to do and carry out that mission. That's based on experience. So their minds are operating at more of like a quantum level where they're thinking of all possible outcomes that can occur and the probability that they will based on their actions. And so it brings your brain all the way back to that.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah,
easy.
no, I recognize the potential there, just so much potential, and I'm missing out. I'm well aware of it, but like I said, it's like I'm in this whatever, call it a rut or whatever, but where yeah, I'm not tapping into that. So I've been thinking about, and so I've tried to sit down and meditate, but my monkey brain just is just like he's just banging his little gongs like crazy. I have a really hard time. So I'm kind of looking for a way to bootstrap my way,
Yeah,
up to this kind of stuff.
absolutely. And that's what we can definitely help you with. That specifically is what I'm interested in helping people with. Is
Great.
that awakening that can occur through, because it's not good to focus on one method. You have to be whole. So there are many methods, like they said, even Kundalini, that's one thing. And there's 212 methods,
Yeah. Wow.
so
Yeah.
all these methods exist. If you're a lucky person, a chosen one, whoever, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it happens naturally. And for those people, which I consider myself one of, it's not a gradual process like it normally would be. It happens naturally and instantly. Then it's our job to refine our abilities and to expand our abilities. But anyone can reach that level. It just takes progressive learning through multiple methods, and it can be stimulated with inducing it, utilizing something like psilocybin or something like that, because it will just skip you ahead like 2/3 maybe, because you'll be ready. You'll reach that state of readiness, of openness, and
Now,
then you can
I've
move
also
forward.
I've heard people say, yeah, entheogenics is shortcut. It's if you want the real experience, you got to go the meditation route.
You do
Um,
need to do meditation. I 100% agree. I'm
It's
actually getting ready to take like $1,000 class on transcendental meditation just to up my game.
yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, I need help with that whole thing. So if you guys are, let's work something out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what my goal is in this. That's why I joined this group. I'm not on any other groups. This is the first one I ever joined. I didn't used to talk to people about these things because it scares people, makes them uncomfortable, especially when you're not just theorizing, but when you show it in practice, it scares people because they're just afraid of the unknown naturally.
Yeah,
So I've never talked about it except for a handful of close family members, and still, you know, they're in your situation. They believe, but they don't know. I know, and I know that these practices that we can help you with, uh, beyond meditation, breath work, there are those are like your intro level courses. You elevate these courses using a guide or a shaman or an instructor or whatever you want to call it, because they are experienced and they're one of those ones that receive that gift naturally like that. And so they can help people that are working on the progression. And that's my goal in joining this community, to share knowledge in duality with them, right? So I'm receiving knowledge and feeding knowledge and doing my best to do it with my heart and intent on the will of God, of the creator, the universe, for the positive side of things rather than the negative, to increase light. And so really that's my goal in joining this program and why I'm on this call today.
I love that. And that seems pretty aligned with what Kyle and I have stated are our objective for reaching out to so many people and having this kind of audience and putting out this type of content and building these type of programs, is that we think that the highest priority of a human life is elevating human consciousness. And the first thing we have to do if we want to elevate human consciousness, we elevate our own consciousness.
What are you
Right.
talking about?
like-
I thought the meaning of life was to accumulate money.
I'd like to read quickly this mission statement that I wrote this morning before this call. And my mission statement is to awaken seekers to their divine intuition through the sacred arts of astral projection, remote viewing, and dream alchemy. And by fostering conscious contact with the infinite through prayer, meditation, and timeless practices, we will empower individuals to transcend confusion, intuitively navigate life's mysteries, and embody the will of the divine, uniting a community of sovereign spirits in harmony with the cosmos.
Nice.
Sovereign spirits. Sovereignty is a pretty high virtue. And it's not respected by the archons. And that's why that one word unlocks so much of our destiny.
Right. Sacred sovereignty.
It's the whole crux of Christianity. You don't hear this from Christians, but Christianity is about freedom. Jesus Christ was an anarchist. He taught everybody that you're your own master.
Yep. Flipping over tables.
Yeah, no, but the people got to realize that government and authority is illegitimate. The government is just a euphemism for slavery because it's based in fear, it's based in coercion, it's based in violence.
Here, cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. Jeremiah 17:5.
Yeah. Yes. One of my dear friends, I want to tell a story about my friend Greg. I think he'd want me to tell the story, but this guy, I knew him since the 7th grade, and he was such this guy was the farthest from God that you could get. He was atheist. He didn't believe in anything spiritual. He was generally impatient, ADD, lustful. He'll tell you all these things. And he posts this publicly on his platform, so I think he wouldn't mind me revealing it. And we all have our faults. But he messaged me some years later, and we were good friends. Years later, he was married, he had a kid, and he said that he remembered me as someone who seemed to be more interested in the esoteric side of things, and he'd had an experience and he wanted to talk about it. And I said, okay, sure, lay it on me, what happened? And he said that he had a spiritual awakening. He sort of tested God, I guess, but the test was sincere. Like you're not supposed to test God if you're insincere. I think that's the key. But you can ask God to show himself to you if you sincerely want to know. Otherwise, you're just this sort of fake skeptic. But he had a moment of true skepticism where he got this mantra from his previously estranged father, who'd been through in and out of alcoholism and was in a similar sort of downward spiral as himself, but he reconnected with his father, and his father had a spiritual awakening and went through Buddhism and Christianity and everything. And he repeated this mantra that his father gave him of, I want God and only God. And so for 3 days, he went around throughout his day, everything, thinking nothing but I want God and only God. And in thinking, I want God and only God, just repeatedly, I want God and only God. Go to the grocery store, I want God and only God. Wake up, I want God and only God. By the 3rd day, he went into a dream state so profound that he met with aliens. He said, oh my God, the aliens, there's warring factions of aliens. Some of them are aligned with Jesus Christ. Some of them are aligned with Satan. And the ones who are aligned with Satan, they tried to co-opt me. And the problem is the ones who were aligned with Satan, they were so beautiful and they were so convincing, and they weren't what you would expect. They didn't have horns, they didn't have a tail. And they sort of preached this narrative of overthrowing God and how we as humanity could do better. And it was so seductive. They were so beautiful and so convincing. And he also came face to face with the quote unquote Jesus alien on board the mothership. And this was literally an 8-hour vision quest in his sleep that he came face to face with these entities. And it was the same story all over again, that this seemed to him to be more real than waking experience, even as a dream. But he experienced all these entities and they tried to sort of co-opt him to their agenda. But then he went for a walk around the block when he woke up and he could see through his closed eyelids. He didn't even have to have his eyes open to walk around the block. And all of a sudden he just starts to wake up and not care about money and not care about mundane things. And because of his upbringing in Christianity, he started to suppose that the Bible is the literal word of God and must be interpreted as such without deviation, and went down a fundamentalist path for a bit. But that's sort of a first order understanding of what's really going on. And he would
when you've never read history.
Yeah, so he went down this path for a bit and he became a bit of a zealot on Facebook. He started posting these rants about God and about Jesus, and people started following. A lot of people followed him and started commenting on his stuff, liking his stuff, because a lot of people are actually aligned with the fundamentalist literal understanding of the Bible, which he became a zealot because of this brief vision quest. However, as he started to go deeper, his messages became more and more provocative, because he started to say things that were more of a metaphorical interpretation of the text, more of a deeper understanding of the text, because he went deeper in his meditation. He went deeper into his mantras. He went deeper into the visions. And he started to be able to read between the lines and make contact. And even like who was on what side started to blur. And where he would argue with me before about, well, the name Jesus is the most important thing. You have to use the name Jesus. If you don't accept Jesus, you're screwed. And I would tell him, I don't think that's important at all. You know, I think it's great to connect with Jesus, and I personally do. But it's my belief that if you have an open heart, if you have opened that heart center, if you align with that frequency, if you exhibit brotherly love and you do good to people, and you are on that level of consciousness, it doesn't matter if you've never even heard of Jesus. You are absolutely a brother in Christ, whether you use the terminology or not. And he would fight me on that point tooth and nail, that you had to use the name Jesus. But he started to shift. As he went deeper into it, he started to shift. And his messages on Facebook, his posts on Facebook started to alienate the following he had accumulated. And now the fundamentalist people, he would get trolls on every single post who were just hell bent on dismantling whatever he said. It's not like he was doing anything evil. He is just trying to spread like positivity and love for no financial gain whatsoever. He started making it his like full-time hobby. Whatever money he made from day job that he didn't need, he would go and try to be like a good steward of that money and go find people who were literally starving in third world African countries and figure out which communities like have leaders reaching out for that kind of aid that were for real, versus ones that might be like trying to take people for a ride and scam them. And like literally talking to these people, having video calls, meeting starving children, and go, oh, like, let me send money to you. And like, he just couldn't help it. He's like, I have to help these people. And he started to have that sort of spirit. And you start, and the more he did that, the more like little trolls would appear on all of his posts. He would just have some meditation every day, and from his meditation, he would have some insight about the Bible. He would say things that were so provocative, like how at one point he was trying to make some weird point. I don't know what it was, that, and he compared God and Jesus to like gay lovers or something. It sounds, I don't remember the exact point, but it like really pissed people off that were more fundamentalist. And like everything is metaphor in the Bible. Like you really don't get the actual meaning of it until you go layer by layer by layer beneath the surface and decode it. And he was going through that journey of dismantling societal beliefs and decoding it and trying to really personally know the spirit called Jesus. And I never expected it from this guy. I never did, but I'm very inspired by him. So
it's an unfortunate analogy.
Yeah. No, the church, the fundamentalist church. I've been watching videos by this guy named Aaron Abke. Has anyone ever heard of him? Aaron Abke. This guy's great. He goes into the whole, the Pauline version of Christianity versus the Jesus version, where Jesus, all he was saying is love each other, it's God, you're all the same, basically everything that we're talking about. Then Paul came along and said, yeah, no, 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 no. The key is you got to, Jesus, you got to say the name. That's how you get saved. That's the key. Doesn't matter what you do. Uh, doesn't matter what's in your heart, just as long as you
Well,
say Jesus, right? And
Jesus told us even he doesn't want our deeds, he wants our hearts. And
yeah,
he showed us what he called the way to embody the will of the divine.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, and the thing is, yeah, the Pauline teaching is counter to that. It is strictly counter to that. And but Paul, I mean, the whole church is based on Paul. You know,
Yeah. Leave
Western.
any church that tells you to put your faith in man or that they are a medium for you to the divine.
Yeah,
Leave that church.
yeah.
And Paul, the same Paul is an agent of the black nobility.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think so. Not that I know really what the black nobility is, but just from just from the sound of it.
Everyone that has power is tied back uh, often to an order, whether it be the creation of this nation, the United States, with the Freemasons, Egypt with the Freemasons, where it came from originally. There are many orders with many different mission statements. And so it's important to align yourself with the one that reflects or resonates with who you are and who you want to become.
Don't align yourself with any order. Don't align yourself with any religion. Don't align yourself with any government of man. Align yourself, with truth.
Right.
Be an individual. Don't be afraid to be an individual.
Yeah, I think I'd say sovereign spirits in harmony. So like
Always
this
bring
group,
Kabbalah.
and our communication, that's sovereign spirits in harmony. We are not confined by an individual ideology or dogma.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't resist pulling this up because you mentioned the Freemasons that founded the United States or whatever it was when they created
Yeah,
peace.
I mean it's on. They have plaques even on the Statue of Liberty. They're the ones.
Yep.
So the tree of life from Jewish mythology. The Kyle probably knows all the Sephiroth better than I do, but at the bottom you got Malkuth, which is the sort of the earthly kingdom, and you got Kether at the top, which is the heavenly kingdom. And on either the left and right side, the task of the magician is to sort of equilibrate the complementary opposites. And so that first equilibration is in Tefereth as the Christ consciousness. But then our founding fathers sort of realized this and aligned Washington, D.C. with the Washington Monument pointing at the Pleiades constellation. Did they do that at Cather, or is that the Washington Monument? Yeah, I think that's the Washington Monument. And they align that with Pleiades. And then they sort of use those Jewish mysticism constructs to implement checks and balances of power between the Supreme Court and the executive branch.
Notice how they've got it lined up with the Great Pyramid like that.
Where do you see that? What pyramid?
Triangle, the photo of the Sephiroth over the city, the top of it is the Great Pyramid. The top five spheres.
Which one?
That picture that you have there with the Sephiroth over the map, I see the Great Pyramid in the top five spheres, the way that it's laid out like that.
Yeah. I mean, what it is, it's a visual map of how the infinite and the finite realities flow into and from each other, and provides a framework for understanding the divine structure of creation and the interconnectedness of all of existence.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a, I mean,
You
it's a
guys-
diagram. It's a diagram that represents the structure of the universe and then the spiritual and metaphysical path to enlightenment. It's also how our bodies. It's as above, so below. It's in the universe, and it's in our bodies with our electromagnetic fields. It's all connected, and then it's just the same thing. Like how when you zoom in, but then you keep zooming into the window, and then but they're behind that window. You can keep zooming in or zooming out. As above, so below. It represents itself, just like the cosmos. You know, you see each individual star is like, you know, a nuclear element in on the quantum level, and how that's how we look down at the base level is not solid, but these tiny particles with their own individual stars and forming galaxies on the universe. And if you actually took that empty space away in humans, in all 8 billion humans on the earth, if you took away that empty space that I like to think of as the Holy Spirit, or you can think of it as part of the ether or the universe, all 8 billion humans could be condensed down into the size of a sugar cube. The tree of life shows, it represents that structure that is seen as above, so below, in the macro and in the micro, in the quantum, in the spiritual. And it links, it's the theory of everything.
As within, so below, or some crap like that.
That's from the Hermetics.
Yeah. As within, so without.
Yes, thank you.
It's better out than in, though.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, the tree of life, it's a key to consciousness and allowing individuals to see beyond like what manifests in reality and understand the deeper meanings, like the relevance of their interactions and experiences. So what's the purpose in just knowing? You know, just knowing the deeper meaning versus the relevance of your actions combined with the interactions of others. That is what's important. If Christ was incarnated to this earth and just lived in a cave and kept all of that knowledge to himself, it wouldn't have had any effect on the universe and on our world. And so it's that interconnectedness, that action and interaction that is key. So you have to find the relevance in the deeper meanings.
Yeah. Guy, Jesus, had some kind of training. He went to India. He went to India or
he went to Egypt. He went to Egypt primarily, and he was trained in the same ancient teachings as Moses was.
They were magi.
Moses was raised by them. They trained like the netters do in ancient Egypt.
The serpent.
And so those years between 12 and 33, he traveled to other areas as well to meet with the high priests and shamans, whatever you want to call them. Even he had a very rich uncle in England and spent time with the Druids. And this is like historic been proven historically accurate. So with the Druids and the monks, and in India, but primarily he spent his time during his earlier years from age 12 up until being into his later teens in Egypt, training the same way as Moses.
He totally could have just sat under a rock or under a tree or in a cave somewhere and just lived forever, circulated the microcosmic orbit for eternity, becoming a totally incomprehensible life form to anybody, not interacting with anybody. And maybe he would have been one of the ascended masters that was sort of behind the scenes, quietly raising the vibration of life on this planet. But this guy chose to drink wine with prostitutes despite his high level of achievement. And he went with some of the quote unquote lowest among us and thought that really they had the best shot of entering the kingdom of God, because people like the Pharisees or the centurions or the emperors, the Caesars of the world, as if you read the Bible where he talks about Caesar did this or render under Caesar what is Caesar. It's not just about Caesar. Caesar is a representation of the government. Caesar is the timeless Caesar. Caesar is sort of immortalized in the forever now when he talks about Caesar. But he goes with the people that have the best chance of attaining the kingdom of God, because they
the
don't
chosen ones. Literally, that's what they are called, the chosen ones, right? And he expands it outside of just Judaism to others, to grow that right, and expand that. He went to speak to the Gentiles, so it's not just that one order that he was speaking to. He was speaking to people's hearts, because you could have been born in Africa or Europe or wherever. He's speaking to the hearts. So it's not just the people confined to that order that are chosen ones. And it's also important to remember, we are incarnate, in meat, become flesh, incarnated human souls, right? And you could debate where they come from or are, or exist at, or give it a name like a sixth dimension, but we are incarnated human souls, while Christ was the only direct fractal from God that became incarnated. So we are fractals of God, but then we incarnate. And Christ was a direct fractal from God, incarnating for the only time, at least. That is an important thing. Christ is not a human soul incarnated. It was God himself incarnating through a fractal.
He taught us a lot of things about the nature of the universe, the nature of being, the nature of life on this planet. And among those are lessons of how to interact with the sick. Tie it back to harm, that he was literally a doctor. He was the doctor's doctor. He rose people from the dead and still said, greater things than I do shall you do. So if you believe what Jesus said, you literally can raise the dead. If you follow Christ, in that you decide to be the way that he is, rather than follow him in a religious sense. But he taught lessons about abundance too, that there's literal infinite, anything you could possibly need, like the God provides for you. And you have these weddings where like all they've got is water. They ran out of wine, and they say, Jesus help, like we're so screwed if this wedding doesn't have wine. He turns water into wine.
Yeah, the church that's equated with that, I was actually just randomly taking a walk at nighttime in Long Beach by 2nd Street, like an area where there's a lot of stuff. And I was walking back to my car and happened upon a church, and it was the Church of Science, Christian Science. And I had always heard about it and kind of been interested. So I walked in and joined, and they believe in the healing power of Christ, and that how he taught his apostles and disciples to go forth and use that we also can obtain that knowledge through practice and praise. And I actually was sitting down, and it was really strange because after two people had talked, and then the woman that was running it walked over and asked me if I would come up and speak. And I ended up speaking for about 15 minutes to this group I'd never met on those fundamental principles of the reality of the trueness of being able to heal that way. I didn't use words I normally maybe would have when it's alchemy or transmutation, but that we have that ability as well.
There's footage of Tibetan monks curing cancer with energy transfer in lifetime.
Yeah, and them even like
there's videos
back and levitating them like up a wall where they're just like using their hands, and there's video of it, like focusing that energy and then pushing on their lower back and spine, and like just kind of pushing on their lower back, and they end up like walking up the wall with their hands and their feet are off the ground.
Wow.
And there's real video of this.
What?
And even Mel Gibson was talking about it on Joe Rogan, and that happened to him. And he said the monk was just like, yeah, that happens sometimes. Like, it's normal. Just brushed it off.
But people wouldn't believe what's actually real.
We got to compile some of these videos because we can talk about that all day, but people literally aren't going to believe that unless they see it. I've seen the kind of videos that you're talking about, not those specific ones, but you can tell when somebody's doing a stage trick or when they did some special effects, and when there's actual energy going through their body. You can, if you're energy sensitive, you can feel it. There's one that made back in the early 2000s of John Chang, who is the last in the Mopai lineage, and he was setting newspapers on fire. He was healing people with acupuncture and energy, and people that he would send the energy into them, they wouldn't be able to control their movements, like their arms and their legs were moving all over the place, and they needed people to ground them. So we should probably have some
possession.
Oh yeah, they're possessed by demons. Yeah.
That's real. Usually only influence, not possession. But that's normal for everybody.
Yeah.
Every single person.
It's energy, and
if they might be blind to it, but it's because it only manifests as influence, internal dialogue, and subconscious mind influence. You got to think like 10% of your mind is your conscious mind, 90% science proven, 90% subconscious, and it's where all your beliefs and dreams and everything else exists. Your motivation, your natural inclination and response,
memories
is all there. And so, I mean, that's what you're tapping into when you do the neuroplasticity stuff, is that you're expanding that 10% consciousness to your whole mind. And that is why monks and people like that are capable of expanding that 10% so far that they can reach the parts of their mind that control bodily functions, slowing down their heart rate to like nothing, or like all your cell reproduction, everything is controlled by part of your mind, right? So they're able to consciously focus that will and intent and emotion to be able to be out in just their robe in sub-zero temperatures for hours at a time, meditating, and to transfer and focus that energy. And this is not some hocus pocus stuff we're talking about. This is science. Our electromagnetic fields that are all connected in the universe. It's known. We produce it. We can read it with instruments, and we can focus it and then draw upon it, just like the 0 point energy or whatever you want to call it, the energy field, the ether as Nikola Tesla called it. So you can draw in energy from the ether to amplify your own electromagnetic frequencies, and then you can focus them from being a lamp to a laser in various frequencies, depending on the desired effect.
That's one of the most basic supernatural powers, it seems, is the ability to increase the core temperature of your body to the point where you can withstand the sub-zero temperatures. A lot of people can do this. And a lot of people, even quote unquote muggles, can be trained in this ability. Just look up the Wim Hof method. But the Tibetan monks who practice, it's called tumo, because they start this tumo fire. They either imagine a cauldron with some fire or boiling in their lower dantian or at the base of their spine. And they will sit out there in the sub-zero temperatures, like you said, and they'll have somebody come around and soak a sheet in water. They'll soak the sheet with water and they'll wrap it around themselves in sub-zero temperature. And you'll watch as they're meditating, steam like coming off of this soaked sheet in sub-zero temperature, and they will dry sheet after sheet after sheet. Just with their So those we have a manner of speaking that traps us into the left brain consciousness, and it's the linguistic constructs where we believe we are what we say we are. We are the it rather than the is of
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that people think of us like an individual battery, right? It's important to know how electricity and how electromagnetism actually works. How does a light bulb light up? If you have a battery and it's connected directly to this light bulb and you click the switch, the battery, and this is proven in science, you can Google it, the battery does not directly power the light bulb to illuminate. What it does is that it provides an electromagnetic conduit where outside of that coil, in the ether, the electromagnetic sphere, the battery gives off energy into the atmosphere. And the light bulb.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out.
Okay, I just lost my earpiece, but so that is literally how it works. The battery gives to the atmosphere and the light bulb draws from it. They're connected electromagnetically. And so the battery, and that's why it can happen at speeds, they've proven it because they've shown the ability to have at a distance, and the light bulb turns on faster than the speed of light. And that's because it's not traveling directly. It's pushing to the atmosphere and pulling from the ether. And that's how they know it's science and scientifically proven.
Yeah, it's sort of like a current, that the current in the wire, that the electrons don't have to move all the way from the battery to the light bulb. They're just pushing the stream.
Right.
The stream has to move all at the same time.
I'm trying to get you on speakerphone. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but people sort of disconnect the idea of the who they are from the what they are, and they think of themselves in terms of the language that they speak of. So if you think of yourself as this body and you're told from an early age that certain things are your own conscious doing and certain things are not your conscious doing, and it's all just a manner of speaking, actually. So if we say things like, I move my legs or I walk, it's my conscious volition that I can go outside and go run, or I can move my arms, or I operate my vocal cords. These are things that I do versus things that seem to happen to you. You know, like if you go outside and you get a suntan, you would probably regard the sun shining as something that happens to you versus something that you do. That ordinarily in societal constructs wouldn't think of yourself as shining the sun, but you would think of you would think of it as a happening over which your conscious volition doesn't have any control over. But then if you talk about beating your heart in normal terms, in societal terms, you would say my heart beats. It would be weird to say I beat my heart. But when you think about it, actually like, who else is beating your heart? You're the one who's beating your heart. But as a manner of speaking, we say that my heart beats. And this has a powerful psychophysiological effect in that we start to actually believe the language that we've been taught. So that if you say, my heart beats, you think of it as a subconscious process over which you don't have any conscious control. And so things that start to affect your emotional state, like fear or arousal or anger, you will start to feel like those are outside of your control, that emotions are things that happen to you as opposed to things that you do or things that you decide or things that are within your conscious control. But that's only a manner of thinking, because if you start to shift your paradigm, and the way that you can do this is by going into practices like breath work and yoga, because that's the hack. If you read Vivekananda, he talks about how you gain control over finer and finer processes within your body, and you go to more subtle and subtle layers by grabbing hold of things that are coarse enough for your current ability to grasp them. So you start with the breath, because the breath sort of straddles both realms between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. That the breath, you can decide to breathe and say, I breathe in, I breathe out. You can take control over that. But then if you stop thinking about it, it's weird, because your body still takes over. If you stop thinking about your breath, you still breathe. You go on to something else. It's not like you forget to breathe, you die all of a sudden. You just start breathing again. You don't really have to think about it. So in yoga, we use that to grab hold of the autonomic nervous system. We use that to grab hold of the relaxation response and learn to go deeper. So we use the breath to grab the prana, and we use the prana to grab the deeper layers, the astral, etc. But you start with the breath. You learn to control the breath, and then you realize that maybe your heart is not so outside of your conscious control as you once supposed. And once you learn, well, actually, like, I'm the one who beats my heart, and you start talking like this, people are going to look at you like you're insane. You start, like, I go to family gatherings and I talk about the health of my liver or my pancreas or my kidneys, and my dad told me, wow, you have all sorts of awareness of body parts that I didn't realize that I had. Like, most people don't think about their liver. It's just something.
Scientific proof that talking to, say, your liver, for example, talking to it with positive emotion, just the same way as doing that with water when they freeze water and they say, like, if you say hate at it or love, how it freezes into different patterns, that's proven. Our body, made of water and plasma, also reacts the same way at the cellular level. And so you can actually heal parts of your body. And it can also be encouraged through some of the mantras and stuff. Ow is actually an entire sound. And so it's ow. It goes through your mouth like that. And doing that to specific body parts through the National Institute of Health scientific research studies, they have proven that that works and can up to 100% increase your healing time, even faster in some other cases. That was the average, to double your healing time, or lessen it by 1/2 average. So it's very real. Every individual cell and atom, electron, has consciousness at a fundamental level.
Yes, you can absolutely speak to your body and tell it to discharge its proper function. You have a
Right.
slide where you can tell it to discharge its proper function and, you know, kick its butt into high gear and start making bio.
So this is known. It's just how do you do it, right? Some
Mhm.
people are capable of doing it mentally. They've proven also visualizing, and this is in the National Institute of Health, the government website, visualizing lifting weights can have up to 50% of the effects of doing heavy weightlifting, almost close to the amount, not quite, but visualizing as if you were there, like thinking back to a memory of doing like bicep curls in these studies show that it has at least up to 50% of the same effect, because your body doesn't know the difference. If you are able to put yourself in that place of authenticity with your imagination, you can imagine it and it becomes real to your body. So you also never want to say negative things to yourself, because even if you're the only one, you're putting it out there, putting out that energy through vocalizing it. So it's that mental process that requires the vocalization. Same with writing things out. It's the mental process that's required to do that intent. So it's through emotion that you can reach these stages through the various practices.
Yeah, it's all about the feeling you generate. And it's,
Feeling, emotion.
in some sense, it's really difficult in modern times if you stay plugged in. Like if you're plugged into social media, if you're, you know, even if you were plugged into the television in the 90s, it probably wasn't as challenging as it is now, as if you're in social media.
It produces shell shock for our mind. Like anything you can get accustomed to. You can go to a dirt bike thing where they're jumping 150 feet off the ramps, 20 minutes. It's like, okay, that's just what happens now. And you can do that with anything.
But at the same time, like if you know the simple fact, if you know the limitations of your mind, because we're infinite beings, but our mind is like the brain itself, this physical vessel absolutely has limitations. And we need to be aware of what those limitations are if we want to access the infinity. So you can't do 1,000 things in a day. You know, maybe you can do 3 or 4 things really well. You try to do 1,000, you're going to fail. So you have space in your conscious awareness for only so many things. Most people can only manipulate 3 or 4 variables in their mind without utilizing a pencil and paper. So we need to be very protective of what goes into our conscious mind. So one of the habits I've tried to cultivate is you shut off the machine before you go to bed. You shut off the computer, you shut off the phone. Get the EMFs out of your bedroom, and then go into deep sleep. Go and get your REM sleep. And when you wake up, you know, the temptation for a lot of people is grab the phone and get that hit from Instagram, from Facebook, what have you. But if you can let that go, or you just put it off till later, and then decide, you know what, like I'm not going to take in everybody else's lower astral blockages first thing in the morning, because that's what that is. Like the entire internet is essentially a crystallization of everyone's lower astral blockages, everyone's like the internet is 99% lusty material. Like it's basically like so much of the internet was just built on that. And
if you want to do an initial hack to jumpstart your life, do meditation for the first 20 minutes in the morning before you do anything else. That's what they teach in transcendental meditation. And they also teach to do it for another 20 minutes in the afternoon. Jerry Seinfeld, who uses it famously, said that if he had been doing it twice a day instead of just once a day, Seinfeld would still be on the air. It makes that big of a difference.
yeah. So if you take
my takeaway,
first
that's my
thing,
takeaway from the call. One of them. I'm gonna first thing in the morning. I'm gonna
20 minutes.
start making a habit of that. Yes.
yeah, if you've got your phone, you can set yourself up for such an advantage. if first thing in the morning, you've got your phone shut off, you got everything shut off, and you go and you take that time and you give it to yourself, and you go and you meditate for that time, you can decide, you know what, like, I'm going to be at the cause today. I'm going to cause what I need. Like, if you're chosen one, this is the power you got to step into, is that you are causing your will or the divine will to come through you instead of letting somebody else assault the gates of your mind first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you set the tone for your day like that, and then you consciously decide, you know, I'm so guilty of this. Like, I'll need to do something on my phone, and I'll go to open it, and oh yeah, I need to find such and such an email, and then 4 other notifications pop up, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And I'll like check all those, and by the time like I put my phone away, I go, yeah, I did it again. Like, I totally forgot what it was I was going to do. I forgot my entire mission because somebody else decided that their agenda was more important than mine.
Yeah. That's a daily occurrence for me. Same here, man. And you know, the thing about it is it's just like I mean, it has that deleterious effect that you're talking about, but doggone it, I have a curious mind. It's just all so fascinating to me. The world, man, it's like candy for my brain. I love it, you know? And so it's like one thing out YouTube is just the gauntlet for me because it's all like, oh my God, I want to know.
But the thing is, you don't have to do it you don't have to be in constant state of meditation. There's a great book by Bob Roth called Strength and Stillness, The Power of Transcendental Meditation. And they
20 minutes. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so they showed that 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. They put it into practice, and they went to a school in the Bronx, which had a 42% graduation rate. They agreed with the school. They could adjust the periods to take a morning 20-minute session and a 20-minute session in the afternoon that would have been used. It could be used for like free reading if the kids didn't want to participate in it. But it was to teach transcendental meditation, and all but like 2 of the kids in the school's parents agreed. And they showed in a 2-year period, they went from 42% graduation rate to 72% graduation rate, highest in the county. And they cut by 66% the students being absent or having an altercation at school. So, and they say it doesn't matter if you believe in it. It just works. You don't have to believe that your iPhone will work. It just works. And they do that process, and they've shown the results in many, many, many studies. So, and it's 40 minutes out of your day, but at a minimum 20 in the morning before you get your eggs scrambled.
Yeah, and hopefully this transmission for people is going to be one of the better influences of a cesspool of negative influences. I hope that this is the best possible invasion into your consciousness that you could possibly choose. But I wanted to sort of wrap this up here. We've been going for a couple and a half hours, and I think a lot has come out of this. Like, you guys give me a lot to meditate on, and I wanted to just take a quick couple of minutes and like let people know where they can reach the members of this call. So if you want to be a part of a community like this, and you want to meet some of the wonderful people that have been involved in this kind of thing, the Inner Order is absolutely full of them. We've got the link in the description. You can join the Obsidian Inner Order, and it's way more than, like, as the founder of it, this is way more than I bargained for, is meeting people like this. I never thought that would happen, but yeah, you can join the Obsidian Inner Order. It's great. And then for those of you in the call that have platforms, Scott, you don't have a platform yet, do you? Because I really think you want to. Oh, well,
yeah. We'll talk about it. I'm in the process of creating it. I'm, as I shared with you on the side from the call through chat, just getting the stuff ready together so we're ready to go 100%, not start at 20.
Yes, yes. All right, well, yeah, we can talk offline about that, but yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure people are just dying to reach you after what you've explained to them today. But yeah, Kyle, you wanna tell people your offering, your
Yes, if you want to talk to me or work with me, I offer tarot readings and talk counseling for as low as $10. You can get a full tarot reading from me and my undivided attention. I've put the link in the Zoom if somebody could push that to the chat.
Yeah, we've got Kyle's link in the description of this video. At least I think it's there. I'll double check after this call. It's been in the live chat as well. So if you, I couldn't believe that Kyle was doing that at that rate, but I guess it's promotional. So you can go steal a tarot card reading from Kyle for $10, and
Yep.
that's insane. So
And that's
yeah.
10 bucks Canadian too.
I can testify. I did a couple readings with Kyle, and it was uncanny. It was really great.
I
Yeah.
also did, and it was unbelievably accurate. Unbelievable. And not like, it wasn't like any card could come up and you're just then interpreting that. No, that was not my experience. I'd say when I get ready to roll out my services to help with people, it's going to focus on awaken divine intuition, conscious contact with the infinite, transcending confusion, intuitively navigating, prayer, meditation, timeless practices, like we talked about with the Egyptians and Christ and Moses, embody the will of the divine and sovereign spirits in harmony. That will be my goal.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I keep thinking about all the stuff you just like throw out there, like it's just normal for you, and like, whoa, like just pause for a moment there. I want to hear more about the Hemisync or more about the whatever meditation training you did, and it seems like you got
tip of the iceberg, man.
Yeah.
That's why it comes out naturally, because that's just the tip.
Yeah. Yeah, and then mentor. You've got a really cool platform and a philosophy that I think can help unlock a lot of the conflict that we've got going on in the world. I think it's a great mental exercise. Can you tell people a little bit about that and how they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the way to reach me, well, would be through the website there at just isitos.org, or as RE put up there, also game.isitos.org. And yeah, no, the idea is as you can kind of gather from me, I'm on the path, right? I'm on the spiritual path to enlightenment, but I am very much grounded in the real world. And at Isitos is about uh, kind of like ushering people towards, oneness and the light that are, inclined to think in those atistic ways, right? We're all mired in it, and some people more or less, but it's about engaging people with their minds, uh, but leading them inexorably, like it did for me, to the realization that hey, we are all one, and the spirit is where it's at, and to the extent that you can let go of your etistic bindings, you're going to experience more peace and more joy and more love, right? It's all the same stuff. It's just a different way of getting there, But the game is its purpose is to get more and more people engaged in this path, in this journey to oneness, leaving the trappings behind, moving forward to oneness.
Or wants to play with your concepts. to stretch your mind. And so, yeah, what they can go on the site and they can play the game for free, right?
Well, yeah, look, yeah, like I told you before, I want to set expectations here. This game is nothing like what I envision right now. And it just so everyone understands, Isitos is not some big organization. It's me and a handful of folks that have supporters. But my vision is for it to be vast, and the game will be really engaging. It'll be an infinite game, so you just keep playing and as you play, you're gaining in enlightenment, and you're helping other people gain enlightenment as well. But yeah, I'm looking for folks that are interested and intrigued and looking for a project. I mean, I think that's the real key here. Is it's a tangible thing. It's something with a plan, and we're building something, a machine, right? An artistic machine that's designed to pump out enlightened people, so to speak. So yeah, people find that idea intriguing. I would love to hear from you.
I love it. It's a play on the Latin word veritas, which means the truth, and that sounds like the direction you want to go. Like, we've known each other for maybe 3 weeks now, and that's the sense that I get from you, is that you're interested in getting to the truth, getting to some philosophical underpinning to language, and collectively solving the problem of how do we look at language, and how do we get on the same page about what we mean. So
yeah, absolutely. And I could even sum it up in another way, which is, and this is all documented, and I'm working on this in the presentation, but it's about getting people more familiar with the concept of abstraction. We're talking about things in the abstract. And if you want to understand things, you got to clear out all the clutter and get to the salient point of things. And that's what this is about. That's what abstraction is. And we do abstraction. That's what makes, humans superior. One of the things, for lack of a better word, sorry, but is our ability for abstract thought. And so it's really an exercise in understanding abstraction and then realizing the power of it. And there's nothing more abstract than absolute infinite one. That is the ultimate abstraction. So that's the idea, and good fun, but there's a long way to go.
Sounds great.
reach out to Mentor on platform.
Yeah. Oh, and my email. Just you can reach me at mentor of IO, AIO, mentor of AIO at gmail.com. Mentor of IO.
Okay.
Just go to the website, isitos.org. I got forms and stuff there. It all comes to me.
Well, we're looking for brilliant minds. If you enjoyed this discussion today, drop a like. I hope, I imagine many of you are already subscribed to Astral Adam, or your longtime viewers. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a comment. Every little bit helps us to fight the archons and to get into the algorithm and unlock more minds. If you feel like you belong in a panel like this one, drop a comment and let us know what's your deal. And we would love to have you in our midst. So fascinating conversations like these just materialize by virtue of being associated with great people. And I want to meet more great people. So if that's you, drop a comment and we'll talk. All right. So thank you to Scott, Kyle, and Mentor for joining this discussion.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to Ari for hosting us on Astral Adam and launching such a fantastic platform for all of us to share. And thank you to all the viewers for watching this. So I really enjoyed this session, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Goodbye.